And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
All right, attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And, of course, on the West Coast, it's bright and early. Still dark outside for me and many others. How's everybody doing this weekend? I'm sure people watching L.A. and New York hit the World Series. So before we get into it, let's just hope everybody had a great weekend. It's Monday morning. Got a long week ahead for you. A lot of information. And just want to wish everybody well at the start of the week. John, what do you got, brother?
I had a historic event at Madison Square Garden last night. Donald Trump, I think he took over New York City. A lot of stuff came out. I thought it was awesome. I watched the whole thing. I watched all the speeches. I thought it was awesome. There were a lot of people that were very upset with Tony Hinchcliffe. You know who Tony Hinchcliffe is, Eric? He's a comedian. He's got the show. I think it's the #1 show on YouTube. It's called Kill Tony. It's hysterical. It's a podcast. It's hysterical. It's old school comedy. They abuse everybody, every ethnicity, every gender, every sexual preference. There's no holding back. But I guess according to Democrats, you can't have comedians at a political rally. Did you see what happened with Tony Hinchcliffe before we get into it, or you want me to play the video first?
I didn't get to see it yet, but I heard about it. But, right away I thought, it reminds me of us. Like, people getting mad at podcasts. People getting mad at jokes. Can't say nothing anymore. I'm like, you know what? Right away, what rang to my bell, I was like, you know what? New York's finest time to filter podcast. People don't like jokes. You know why? Because jokes have some truth to it. That's why. Let's play the video, brother. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up in a second. But it's crazy. For those of you that don't know what Kill Tony is, it's so Tony Hinchcliffe was a comedian. He was a broke comedian. He was like basically living out of his car, and he was at the comedy club in LA. He wasn't making any money. He starts this podcast in the Comedy Store in LA, and basically all the podcast is he goes on the stage with like one or two of his friends. He actually has Brian Redband, the original producer of the Rogan podcast, helping him to put this together. But they go on the stage in a comedy club live, they film it, and they pull names out of a hat, and then they have like these, just like anybody could do it. You could throw your name in the hat. You don't have to be a comedian, and he'll give you 60 seconds. He pull your name out of a hat. He mixes the names around. If you get lucky, he pulls your name out of a hat. They give you 6 seconds to do a stand-up routine, 60 seconds to do a stand-up routine, and then afterwards you get roasted. Tony Hinchcliffe is known for doing roasts. He's one of the top comedians in the country right now. One of the hottest comedians in the country too. But he made what I thought was a terrible joke. I personally think he bombed. I don't think he should ever do a political event ever, because I watched the dude numerous times. He's hysterical. He was not funny at all here. Like, I didn't find anything about him funny. And he said it originally, which he said. He goes, he could tell, he could feel the vibe, because comedians know when people are laughing their ass off when they're not. He's like, forgive me, I usually don't come out and open up after the national anthem, I think that, there's a time and a place for everything. So I thought overall the skit wasn't terrible, but it was the only thing that the Democrats have at this point. That's it. The only thing that the Democrats have as to why you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump is because Tony Hinchcliffe bombed on the stage last night. Sick, dude. Sick. No jokes no more. All right, let me play it.
Before you play, I want to just say shout out to Tom Joyce, $20 to the podcast. We appreciate friends, listeners. Listen, we could buy some coffee and donuts with that. We really appreciate it. Anybody wants to buy us coffee and donuts, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Tom Joyce, brother, we really appreciate it. Good way to start Monday, coming off the weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom Joyce. So here we go. Here's Tony Hinchcliffe. Here's a little clip last night. Definitely going to raise some flags, but just think, the dude's a comedian. He's a roaster, so he's always taking shots at people. He recently just did the Tom Brady roast. Here's him. This is his style of comedy. This is how he does. Watch Kill Tony after this if this pisses you off.
A lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody. A lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally.
So he knows it. He's like, this is such a bad spot for me to be in. Like, he could just tell. Like, that's what he said. It's a floating island of garbage. He's talking about Puerto Rico. Obviously, I mean, how many Puerto Ricans were there last night? Thousands and thousands of out of 20,000 people. I mean, if there was fourth wasn't Puerto Rican, I'd be shocked.
Well, it definitely wasn't his funny joke. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was a joke. It was in jest. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't funny, especially for him. He tried, and you know what? He felt the temperature too. You could tell he felt the temperature. That this wasn't going well. But yeah, I mean, I get the reference, but it wasn't funny.
No, I mean, I wouldn't. I just think it was a terrible joke. Not that it was terrible because, oh, you can't say things like that. No, it's comedy. Like, comedy's supposed to be. I just thought it wasn't funny. It just didn't go with the crowd. It wasn't in the moment. These people all hyped up on the state of the country. And then he goes further and he like starts making fun of some black dude in the audience. And he's like, oh, look at this cool black guy with this weird hat on or whatever. And he's like, oh, maybe we could carve watermelons later. And like, it's just not like, it just was not the atmosphere. Again, like, he's a comedian. Usually when you go to a comedy show, it's nighttime. You're sitting there, you're drinking. Nobody's drinking here. Nobody's riled up. Nobody's expecting to hear these jokes at this point. Half the people probably don't even know who Tony Hinchcliffe is. I know he's the most popular comedian, but you got to think these are people that are into politics. They don't watch sports, the most of them. They don't watch comedy. They're not on YouTube. They're looking at, and especially if it's Trump's people, they're watching Newsmax. They're watching RSBN. They're watching Fox News. They do not know who Tony Hinchcliffe is. They're just not up to date. So they're like, who the hell is this little guy? Like, he's funny bastard. I've seen him numerous times in person. I saw him before he was even famous. And I was like, literally crying. I was like, this kid is hysterical. But this is his style of comedy, is to like, it's almost shock comedy a little bit, So I thought the joke was horrible. I thought it bombed, but I don't think it had it doesn't outweigh anything. Listen, Kamala Harris's stances on just about everything. She has no stance. She has zero reason why she should be the president of the United States at this point. And I think America is seeing that. Like, Eric, what do you think about the state of America right now? What do you think the average, like, what are you seeing right now? Do you see the country moving in favor of Trump? You're all over the country. You're traveling. You're everywhere. You've hit basically the entirety of the United States of America these last 2 years. What do you see for Trump?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that, right? Because I definitely, my travels by RV, I have actually, there's only a couple states left that I haven't hit yet. I've hit almost all 50 states by RV. Obviously, I can't hit Hawaii by RV, but I was stationed out in Hawaii for a while when I was in the Marines. So I'll count that. But I can drive to Alaska. That's definitely on my list. But what I see is what I've been saying on prior episodes. And I said, where are all these crazy liberals? Where are all these democratic socialists that we hear about? Because I spent a lot of time also in California, where I heard it was going to be all these crazy liberals running around. And, I figured it would be another New York. And yes, a lot of the political ideology does remain the same, but I definitely see the tides turning, because even in LA, in San Diego, in cities like that, where you do have a lot of liberal foundation of politicians there and legislation, very similar to New York, you really see the tides turn. I mean, I've been in parts of LA, in Long Beach, where you have stores just dedicated to Trump, and people on the street are just fed up and they want major change. And people that you wouldn't suspect are fans of Trump, they're openly and publicly saying right now, I don't care, I'm voting for Trump. And it's not because Trump is the best guy in the world and he's perfect. Unfortunately, that's the ideology. If you vote for Trump, you believe he's some kind of messiah, because people just want legitimate change and they're fed up. And it's come to the point where I've met a lot of people where Democrats and Republicans are just starting to meet in the middle because they just want a better America. And I see it by RV, man. I am everywhere. I'm all over the place. And you know what? Very rare do I see some people that vote for Kamala. I see some people in favor of. I don't know, where is it? I mean, I see the polls, and the polls are pretty good, but still, it doesn't reflect what I see in the country. There's no way Kamala Harris has the percentage that they claim she has. So, Popeye, damn it, I want to say Popeye. That's hilarious, that name. I want to say thank you so much for $20 to the podcast. And he writes, Eric moved to the other side of the slide out. Woohoo! Let's go, Trump. So I definitely know you're familiarized with RVs. Absolutely, this is a slide out. I'm sitting in. It's awesome, by the way. It creates a lot of space. It's huge. Popeye, damn it, thank you so much. $20. We'll get more coffee and donuts. So you're gonna buy us lunch. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate. John, what do you think, brother? What do you think about especially listen, Florida? You expected already to be in favor of Trump. That is America. But what make you feel that the rest of the country is starting to jump on board?
I mean, to me, New York City is the barometer for me. New York City and the people I know in New York City. I've always been very political. So I know a lot of people. So I know everyone from every end of the political spectrum. I've been having political debates, I think, since I'm in my 20s, like my early 20s. So I know all my friends' political ideologies. Most of my friends are politically involved, and a lot of them don't believe this in the same politics I have. So like I said in 2020, I knew 2-time de Blasio voters that voted for Trump because they said we can't put Joe Biden in office, and we just can't do it. And now I'm seeing even a bigger shift. I'm seeing a shift amongst my Muslim friends, and a lot of my Muslim friends I've had conversations with about Donald Trump. I've had conversations because they believe Trump's a racist. They believe Trump is anti-Muslim. And I could never break them out of that. I was like, I don't understand why you think that, like what he said that offended you so much that you believe that. I was like, I don't see it. And even those people that at one time said that Trump was a racist. So my Muslim friends, they've moved to now they're supporting Trump. They're like, listen, I don't love the guy. And they'll tell me, literally, I had the conversation with several people. With several of my friends who are Muslim who prior in 2020 believed that Trump hated them and Trump was a racist. And the words to me were, I don't love the guy, but there is no other option at this point. I don't love the guy, and they kind of backed away from that Trump hates them. And I think the same's true with a lot of my friends of color, a lot of my Black friends, a lot of my Black American friends, and a lot of my Latino friends. Especially, and then we interact with a lot of people who were in the defund the police movement. A lot of people who are anti police department, anti the establishment. And what they've came to find out is that the establishment is the Democratic Party. I think we've seen it now, and that's why this podcast is so anti-establishment, is because kind of we're just giving a conservative point of view from two Americans who happen to be NYPD police officers. Rich Raj always donating. Rich, we appreciate you a lot, brother. $10. Good morning, guys. Eric, is that a Class B or a Class C?
Outstanding. I definitely recommend, if anybody wants to do it in their life or even live full time, it's amazing. So I have both. I do have a Class A, which I'm not in right now. I'm actually in what's called the fifth wheel. So the fifth wheel is awesome, which I pull it with a big giant Chevy dually that I have. Outstanding. Our fifth wheel, the benefit of a fifth wheel, it's much bigger ceilings. You got a lot of furniture. When you're inside a fifth wheel, it almost feels like you're inside an apartment. You wouldn't even know that it's a moving vehicle. Class B, Class C's are awesome. They got super Class C's. Check them out. If anybody's interested in RV life or just going out RV, contact me. Contact us through www.thefinanceunfiltered.com, or let me know in the chat. I'll help you out. If you ever run into any issues, any mechanical issues, you can contact me and I'll tell you how to fix it. I've learned how to fix most of the stuff in the RV. You have to, otherwise you'll be spending a lot of money. So yeah, definitely. I mean, John, what's crazy to me is that I believe there are people that are they're not really in favor of Trump, and honestly, they don't really like his character, his personality. But what they do like is they like that Trump has now united the country. Everyone's come together, even if it's just because they're pissed off at this point, or maybe they don't even know anything about policies, but they see that Trump has taken the country in the right direction, and we're starting to come together. And that's what America's about, right? Is being a strong country, United States, and we're supposed to be united and have that American feel, hopefully it comes to the point. And I think that's where it's starting to get to the point. And I said this on some prior episodes. You can drive around in any city in America, any suburban or rural part of this country, and I do it all the time in an RV. And when I see someone with an American flag in front of their home, I say, I know who they voted for and who they're going to vote for. And when I see people, unfortunately, with flags that do some virtual signaling, I say, I know who they voted for also. So that's where it's come to the point in this country. So I think we're starting to deviate from that. The American flag is no more looked at. It's just this MAGA thing, this type of cult. The American flag is going back to what's iconic, to be an American and be something proud. Amazing, Ant. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. 1999 to the podcast. Greetings, gentlemen. Great opening and spot on. A 100. Time and place for everything. By the way, the blue team treats Puerto Rico like garbage. Absolutely. You know what's interesting? Listen, it's not a funny joke, but I think it's bad timing, right? It's not a joke that you want to do at a Trump rally, because Trump already gets a lot of fingers, and that's the only way that they could come after, that the Kamala Harris campaign could come after Trump, is trying to paint him as a racist, to have people that are just disgusted with him and not even listen to the policies and kind of deflect the attention. Same thing that they did to this podcast. How did the upper echelon of the police department team up with Noble and the Guardians and some other people I don't want to mention to target this podcast to try to shut us down by paint us as racist? Completely backfired, but I think maybe it wasn't the time and place for these particular jokes.
Yeah, 100%. It's just like I think Tony's such a funny guy, and he's been controlling crowds for a very long time. But this isn't his crowd. Like Trump could get up in front of a crowd at these rallies, and this is his thing. He controls it. He feels the crowd. He knows when to hit the note. He knows when to tell a joke. He knows what to say, when to say it. Hinchcliffe knows that in a comedy store, right? This is his thing. He's been doing it for 30 years. He is a genius at controlling a crowd. So he probably was like, he got up there not thinking anything. This is easy. I got this. I do this all the time. He recently, so his podcast started out in the Comedy Store in LA, a little small store. And it got so big that a couple of weeks ago, he sold out MSG 2 nights in a row. 2 live shows, 2 nights in a row. I mean, I think he had almost 20 million views the first day, both of them, on YouTube. I mean, the dude's hysterical. So they're not, this isn't like an unfamiliar territory to him, other than this is early in the day on a Sunday. This is a political event. This is a political rally. You are not in a comedy store. And I think when Tony Hinchcliffe started his act, he realized that. He was like, oh, man, this is not my crowd. These are not my people. I saw Rogan a while back, like probably 10 years back. He was in AC, and Hinchcliffe was opening up for him. And Hinchcliffe opened up for him, but Rogan said, like, all right, these are my people. I look around, I see bald dudes all tattooed up from Jersey and New York. These are my people. Like, I know and he knew what we were gonna, right? He was talking about woke stuff. He was talking about woke policies. They were talking about all that. You're gonna get people laughing at. You go into a nightclub in Manhattan, people are gonna laugh. You go into a comedy store in Manhattan, people are gonna laugh at that. Maybe not today, maybe not the younger crowd, because everybody's so sensitive, But I mean, we grew up in the Richard Pryor era of comedy. We grew up in Eddie Murphy. Like, there's nothing off the table. I was at a party this weekend, and we were talking about In Living Color. I'm like, I used to watch In Living Color with my parents, and we would crack up. We loved watching In Living Color. Me, my parents, my sisters, we would watch In Living Color. And the comedy's horrible, right? When you look at all the stuff, you're like, oh man, it's so bad. But like, it's comedy, dude. It's like taking away from the everyday monotony of life, and it's funny. And people that can't grab comedy is sick. So Billy Baldwin, the lid, takes to Twitter. So he quotes Hinchcliffe. Like I said, Hinchcliffe had a joke about that him and the black eye should carve watermelons for Halloween. That also flopped. Nobody really laughed at it. Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. He got booze. Then he said Latinos love making babies. They don't pull out. They just come inside. And that actually people laughed, right? Like it was, but this is what he does. He goes around. So he says two things. This is Billy Baldwin. If you support Trump, you're a racist piece of shit. And then he announced that this guy Tony Hinchcliffe, is possibly going to do a movie with his brother Alec Baldwin, because he says this guy might not make it out of New York alive. So more than likely, I'm assuming to mean that he's going to film a movie scene with his brother, because we know what happens when you film movie scenes with Alec Baldwin. Traditionally, you don't make it out alive.
Yeah, you better hope that his brother puts blanks in that gun. Oh my god, yeah, but dude, it's so true. It's just it's funny, right? So I guess we could start talking about what's going on with the cops, right? I think that's what's really fantastic. We just switch gears and talking about John Chell. So sure enough, John Chell, the good NYPD chief of patrol, makes an appearance at the MSG rally. What was quite interesting about that was supposedly he wasn't going to appear unless there's problems. And it turns out, which I think is really reflective of what we're saying right now, is how the country is really coming together. And we've come to a point where I don't know what the numbers are, but it feels like the entirety of the country has come together. And you have to ask yourself, like, who's that small percentage that hasn't jumped on board yet? Like, and why? Like, who are these people? But according to John Chell, he wasn't there because there were problems. He said he lied. So he just wanted to be there. Of course, he wanted to make a media tour. But looks like he's actually really MAGA. Just what we've been saying, right? Woke in the streets, MAGA in the sheets. So sure enough, John Chell is there. What did he say? What did he say? He told the public that everything's going on beautiful, that they don't even have any protesters. He said, there's a couple lingering around. That's about it. But they didn't have a protest outside Madison Square Garden. That just shows you how far we've come to New York. The deflection by these Democratic socialists to make you believe that Trump is this anti-American, that we've come together at the most famous arena, which is Madison Square Garden. And here is John Chell himself. Of course, he had to make sure he's doing media tour. So we have a lot to discuss when it comes to John Chell's appearance, how it reflects the police officers. So, John, let's get into it.
Yeah, so, in true form, again, I've been saying for a long time that John Chell is highly politically confused. I think we definitely got to get into the Eric Adams and Donald Trump flirting back and forth 100%, because I think a lot of people are upset about that on both sides. I was a little upset about it at first, but now I think it's hysterical. I hope Trump talks about Eric Adams every day, because every day he does, he puts him more and more on the frying pan with the Democratic Party. So I think it's hysterical. We know a lot more about the corruption and the sheer incompetence of Eric Adams than Donald Trump does. Donald Trump's just looking at it from afar. He's got his own issues. He's not dialed in on New York City. He knows what's going on in New York City, but he doesn't know everything that's going on, especially in the Adams administration. So John Chell is a puppet of Eric Adams. He's a puppet of Kaz Daughtry. But like we were saying for a long time, we kept calling him, we kept doing memes with that he's MAGA in the sheets, but woke in the streets. And what we meant by that is that he's home at his dinner table and he's having a completely different conversation with his family and his friends than he is when he's up in front of the cameras and when he's at work. And, so we've been saying for a long time, Trump supporter. I think the same would be true for Mike Kemper, for noticeably absent from this one of the largest details in recent memory in New York City history is other than like a, an average New Year's Eve and things like that. This is a big event. This is a big political rally, biggest since the RNC in 2004. You see that noticeably absent from the cameras and the media attention is Kaz Daughtry, Eric Adams, Tariq Shepard, Jeffrey Madry, and the only one that's there is John Chell running around like a little fanboy girl. And you could see, I watched a little bit of Crowdsources the Truth video, and I don't even know that he caught it. And I didn't want to go back to look through it. I don't even know that he caught it, but Crowdsource the Truth was outside of the Garden, and he was filming, and it's actually pretty funny. He was arguing with Jack Posebek, and then, you see what a phony Benny Johnson is. Not a fan of Benny Johnson at all. Posebek, I really don't know. I met him a few times. I don't know nothing about him, but they were going back and forth about something. But it was pretty interesting thing. I was like, I was kind of sad I didn't get to go to New York, but I don't like flying for a day. If I'm going to stay, I'm going to stay for a week. And I just didn't have time. I had to be back here. So I didn't go, but I was watching Crowdsources the Truth video, and what he captures while he's talking is, you see in the background, you see John Chell and a couple of his guys come to the gate, and they sneak all their friends and family in. And I'm like, look how so now all of a sudden it's okay. Now all of a sudden these politics are okay. I'm not forgetting what Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul have said about people who support Donald Trump, who have said about people with conservative values. I'm not forgetting any of that, but John Chell forgets that every day. And so he's politically confused. He's sitting up here and he's talking to Newsmax, a conservative-leaning news station, who in my opinion, I was going on Newsmax a lot. I think like 3-4 times a week I was going on Newsmax. And then all of a sudden, him and Kaz Daughtry started going on Newsmax all the time. And they never called me. They actually, one of the producers called me last week, and I didn't go on because I was so disgusted, because I heard little chirping in the background. What they said is, don't have that guy on. He's a racist. And then Newsmax gets scared and doesn't have me on. So I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to go on a platform that could take the word of a person who's either corrupt or turned a blind eye to corruption. So they have John Chell on. He's basically sitting down on this media tour to be a little fanboy for Donald Trump now. So he's like a fanboy for Eric Adams, who's a progressive far-left Democrat, who is an anti-cop. He doesn't support the police. And I'll debate anybody at any time about that. He does not. And then he jumps up on Newsmax and he wants to tell you how great Eric Adams is and how crime is down in New York City.
So what I like to talk about when it comes to John Chell is just the complete hypocrisy, right? So Amazing Ant put a great comment here before we go talk about it. Amazing Ant, thank you so much. She said, the only truth Chell said is, I lied. And how ironic. That is a perfect quote. You're absolutely right. That's the only truth in this, is that he lied that he wasn't going to show up. He sure showed up. For one, he wants to do a media tour because it's about him, but also he really wants to be there because he's a fan. He is a fan. That's the bottom line of Donald Trump. But yet, and that's why I say the same thing, John. I'm so glad that you said that. I'm not going to forget either. We're all cops. I'm not going to forget that Jonathan Diller, a cop who was posthumously promoted to detective, killed by a thug cretin. Donald Trump was at the service, and Donald Trump was completely just dismissed. Right? We had the illustrious chief of staff, who was the deputy commissioner of public information at the time, Tariq Soft Hand Shepard, that did not want the cops to take a picture with Donald Trump. They didn't want the cops anywhere near Donald Trump. Dana Martello, who's a sergeant, I'm not sure if she's still on the job, who's a sergeant at the New York City Police Department, received a 40 or 45 vacation day hit for having a pro-Trump patch on her vest. Sal Greco was wrongfully terminated having a friendship with Roger Stone, which really is a tie and nexus and connection to Donald Trump. But sure enough, here's the truth, right? Pictures speak volumes. Pictures give you a thousand words. This is the truth. This is who John Chell really is, right? But John Chell, again, This just shows you, how can you trust a man like this? How can you trust a man who says Eric Adams allows him to play offense? He cheers for Eric Adams, who, believe me, is not pro-cop at all. The only reason the cops are getting overtime right now because it's such a diminished police department. He has absolutely no other choice. And it's also a deflection to put you out there because they're making money off private contracts, such as a robot that was a complete epic fail. And also a gun detection scanner from Evolve, which we just learned is another epic fail. And where did you hear that? Before it turned out to be an epic fail. This podcast right here, The Finest Unfiltered. But John Chell lies right to your face because he is really MAGA. He is a fanboy of Donald Trump. And I have no problem with that. I have no problem with you being a fan of Donald Trump. But what I do have a problem with is hypocrisy. And the cops can't openly be fans of Donald Trump, but John Chell can. So rules for thee, not for me. That's what you see right here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nighthawk wants to know, why would I show that part of the clip? I guess you're talking about the comedy, because it happened and it's controversial, and I want to just talk about it because I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that we're gonna police words like this and then try to demonize millions of Americans because some little skinny comedian made a terrible joke that flopped and bombed on stage. Mike from Bensonhurst said right before that Hinchcliffe went on that Kamala was tweeting a bunch of stuff about Puerto Rico. Could that have been a setup? I don't know. Possibly. I don't know. I mean, I just think it was he bombed. He bombed on stage. So, but yeah. I mean, getting off that, I'm not going to shy away from things we're not going to shy away from the topics that people are talking about. So that's why we showed that clip. I'll play it again. I could talk about it for 4 hours because it literally is the emasculation of America. And the same way we talk about the emasculation of police is that we can't talk about things. We can't say we're not afraid of that. We're not going to apologize for that. I'm not scared of that. If I thought it was funny, I would tell you I think it's funny. I don't think it's funny. I think he bombed. And I think that's I think that's where we need to get back to in America, is where we can have real conversations. And you could say that guy's a piece of crap. But if you're going to say that everyone in that room's a piece of crap, if you're going to say that this is a Hitler rally, you're out of your mind. You're out of your damn mind. And that's why when we were getting all these racist attacks, a lot of my friends were reaching out to me like, oh, bring me on the podcast. I'll talk about you. I was like, absolutely not, dude. I was like, I'm not. Call me whatever you will. Say whatever you will. I'm a free speech absolutist. I do not care what you say about me. I care when the police department weaponizes resources they have to not organically come after me when it's ordered from the police department, and the same taxes that I pay in New York City are being wasted to paint me out to be a racist or all these other things that I care about. But if you just want to sit there and say I'm a racist or I'm this or I'm that, I really don't care. I don't care. And like, it's the same thing with this. You're going to sit here and paint us out. Everyone that supports Donald Trump, you're an effing racist because this little kid gets on stage and just completely bombs, whether it was the wrong place in the wrong time, or it was a bad call by Trump's PR team, or it was a plan. It doesn't matter to me. It was stupid. This is going to be the issue for the next 7 days. This is going to be the issue for the next 7 days because Kamala Harris has zero campaign. The Democrats are failing horribly, but yet we let these Democrat apologists like John Chell come on these conservative stations, try to talk like a tough guy, try to diminish what everyone, including Donald Trump, is saying, that New York City is not the same New York City that it was a decade ago. New York City is not the same city it was 3 years ago. And so I continuously every day have people tell me that de Blasio is the worst mayor, and nobody could tell me why he is that. De Blasio is the most hated New York City mayor. Why? I don't know. I mean, he's ugly. I guess people don't want to be around him. But Eric Adams has done far worse to New York City than de Blasio. And you could just look at New York City under de Blasio. You could look at the NYPD under de Blasio and do the same for Eric Adams. And it's night and day. The city was a much better place to live. The NYPD was a much better place to work. It was a more professional run organization. There wasn't such craziness going on. The lies to the public really weren't. I mean, this guy is a professional liar. He's a professional. He lies so much, he doesn't even know what he's saying anymore. These people are under Eric Adams. The lies you call DCPI, you used to call the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information Office to find out what's real and what's not. They're the biggest spreaders of misinformation at this point. They will literally tell you no one's been arrested when someone's been arrested. They will tell you John Chell went on Newsmax after all the raids on Ed Caban's house, and numerous other police officials, and as well as other people in the Adams camp, and he said there were no raids on any members of the department. It was a falsehood. The guy's a professional liar at this point. The entirety of this administration are professional liars.
And that's why I'd say up to now, Amazing Ant has the quote of the day, that this was the only truth of him saying he lied, because they lie about everything. You know, Amazing Ant, shout out to you. That was an awesome comment. Absolutely. Because it's so true. It's a one-liner that says a lot. But I guess, you know, that old saying that if you say a lie, if you say enough lies, that eventually those lies become your own truth. And I do think for John Chell, I think he's lied so much at this point that he doesn't even know what the truth is anymore. I mean, he doesn't even know the truth is that Eric Adams was never a pro-cop politician, never a pro-cop captain. He was a complete rebel rouser while he was a member of the police department. In his political life, he's never been pro-cop. We don't know what he's for, what he's against, but I can tell you this. John Chell, like many others at the police department, do a great job of pandering to Eric Adams. How could you pander to Eric Adams and Donald Trump at the same time? It doesn't even make sense. You know, it's completely, it's like oil and water. But of course, listen, this is the truth. This is who John Chell really is. He really wants to be close to Donald Trump, but he also wants to be the chief of department. He wants to go further in his career. So as self-serving as he's going to say, he says in the same breath how great Eric Adams is, but at the same time, he's sitting there and he's rooting for Trump. Let's be honest. We know he admittedly told you there's no issues going on inside. There's no reason for him to actually be there other than for being a fan. And the fact that this, again, this just shows you the layers of the police department that are in place to protect the upper echelon, but are meant to attack the rank and file, to give the appearance that the NYPD is apolitical, to give the appearance that Internal Affairs does investigations, to keep police officers and cops, the rank and file of the police department, to fall in line. But again, it goes back to what I say. It's a three-tiered system. It's general population in blue pants. It's your khaki pants who get amenities by John Chell and other members of the upper echelon. And the upper echelon of the police department is completely protected by Internal Affairs. As far as I'm concerned, Internal Affairs Bureau of the New York City Police Department, they're the soldiers for the upper echelon of the police department. They protect John Chell. They protect the upper echelon so that they're not attacked, so that they don't receive any discipline, so they can do whatever they want. And how do they do it? By attacking the rank and file of the police department. So here's another lie by John Chell, just completely gaslighting, lying, rules for thee and not for me. It's good to be John Chell. It's good to be close to the king. But you know what? He has to live a lie. For somehow it's okay with him. One day he's going to be laying in his bed and say, you know what? I got a $30,000 pension. But is it worth it? Is it worth it that you have to live a complete lie? I guess, listen, if that's what's important to you, I hope you live a long time.
Yeah, as he walks around the NYPD with paranoia, wondering if anyone made fun of him about this interview. As he has his little people, his little minions reporting my account for copyright. All this stuff. So let's see. He has John Chell. This is what he had to say on Newsmax yesterday. You could see he's glowing. Like I said, you see him online vividly, pulling in all his family and friends and other people. Like, it's his garden. This is his day. This is so great. And I'm sure he got himself backstage to meet Trump and everybody, all the people that, when he's at work or he's on the news camera, he downplays. So, but here he is. This is his moment. He sees that New York's turning, the tide's turning. He's hoping that he gets a pardon as well, just like Eric Adams. And here we go.
Yeah, I want to bring in Chief of Patrol John Chell. John, you had said you were not coming down unless there was a problem, but you're here, so I'm hoping everything's okay.
I lied, but everything is great. We got 19,000 in the arena. We got 5,000 outside. Great atmosphere. Everyone's peaceful. We haven't had one incident, no protesters. This is a very energetic day, and it's our job, my job, to keep.
I just want to say right off the bat, he said I lied. 100% amazing, Ant. That was the only truthful thing he said, because right there he says there were no protesters. There were 100% protesters. So when they told you they did a great job the day of the West Indian Day parade, when there was a mass shooting on the parade route in front of hundreds of cops, when he told you that there were no incidents at Columbia University, when there was a accidental discharge and numerous protesters were injured, I mean, this is what he does. He completely lies to the public. This is what he does. There were protesters all over the place that night. What do you think about that before we go further into it? There were no protesters.
Oh, that's why I said, listen, were there less protesters than expected? Yes, right? Which shows the country's coming together. But to say there were no protests is just a complete lie. At the same token, you know what, John Chell? If everything's running so beautiful, why are you there? But what's quite interesting, right? It almost sounds like he's running a political campaign for Trump, which we're not supposed to do in uniform, right? But for John Chell, it's okay. What does he say? He's selling this to you. There's 19,000 people in the arena. It's going beautiful. He's selling the Trump campaign. He's selling the Trump rally. He doesn't realize it because honestly, he looks like a little schoolboy. You can see him. I've never seen such a smile on his face. Look, yeah. Even his skin looks better than it normally does. He's glowing. He's so happy right now because this is who the real John Chell is. I'm sure it's been exhausting to pretend you're somebody else and having to hide who you really are. But listen, God bless you. You had a moment of bliss here. But again, why can't we have a police officer that got into a gun battle, or a police officer that, well, you know what, John, if you really care, why don't you bring a police officer? Hey, listen, I got so-and-so here was involved in a gun battle. Let's honor that police officer. You know what? He's a fan of Trump because he knows that Trump believes in law and order. Something like that, but have a police officer involved. But it's only for John Chell. It's for the upper echelon of the police department. I want to thank J. Dot. I don't know if it's a new friend or listen to the podcast, but a comment. Chell has been showing up for photo op, new chief swearing in ceremonies at the Jersey Shore recently. Not sure if this is normal practice, but definitely a wide angle photo op. Love her lately. $9.99 to the podcast. We appreciate it. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised, but listen. Right now we're getting close to 45 minutes into the podcast so far. We got a lot more to go, but like and subscribe, please. Don't be afraid to subscribe to this podcast. If you have to use a fake moniker, use it, but use your First Amendment right. We need our friends and listeners so that we can get this message out there, so that this podcast continues to grow, because it's so important that we continue the message to support and actually give the right message and the truth of what's going on with the cops. So we appreciate, if you want to support us, our friends and listeners, you want to buy us a coffee and a donut, we appreciate it. Let's keep going. John.
Yeah, no, but I actually did hear that, Jay. I heard a lot of stuff about him continuously going to these ceremonies, and I wonder why he's doing it. Is he doing it? I mean, it's obviously for personal gain. Is it for a friendship? Is he doing it for a fee? Is he doing it because maybe he wants to go work for one of these agencies down the road? I don't know what it is that he's doing, but I know he's a paranoid individual. I know he's completely out of his mind. I know this entire administration is filled with paranoia. And again, just for you on Newsmax that are watching, so you take this dude's word. I just want to let you know what he was doing. He stopped doing it after we called it out on the podcast. But you used to have to, if you worked in his office, in the chief of patrol's office, every day when he walked in, you would have to give John Chell a standing ovation. You would have to stand up and give him a standing ovation. And then I don't know if what happened, if you were the first one to stop clapping. Like, I don't know what happens there. Like, I know in Stalin's Russia, they would kill you. I don't know what was happening in John Chell's chief of patrol office. So that's the person that he is. He's filled with paranoia. He's out of his mind. He's a complete liar and bully. And again, what happens in the dark comes out in the light, John. So, I know what you did. Everybody know what you did. So it'll come out soon enough. So, but keep lying in front of the camera. Keep sucking it all in. Take it all in, because it's going to be short-lived, my friend. So, and here we go. Let's go through this. So he says there were no protesters.
Look at that smile, John. Look at that smile.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually looks like he wasn't drinking at Pippin's last night.
He looks a little healthy today.
Yeah. Maybe it's the Ozempic look.
Keep this venue safe, and I'm very proud of my cops today.
Well, hold on, they have not one protester out in Madison Square Garden. You haven't had one protester problem?
There might have been a few blocks away, but they never made it to Madison Square Garden.
See, so Higbee doesn't even know that he's like, wow, there's not one protester. Like, he doesn't know what he's asking. He doesn't know that he just lied to him. He's like, he believes him, right? But like, you could see the other two that are sitting there like, like that they know that he's lying. And he's like, oh, well, you know what? Actually, there was some protesters, but they weren't right here. They weren't in the building. It's like, okay. And I'm sure a couple of them got it through, by the way. I'm sure. I know a lot of people that were there, so.
You got to give John Chell credit, right? You can show him a shiny little quarter. I'm like, that's not a quarter. That's a nickel. No, that's not a raid. That's not exactly a raid. When you still have your underwear on, it's not a raid. Oh, no. There wasn't protesters at MSG. They were up the block from MSG. I love to see how, I would love to see that post follow-up survey because they're supposed to do a post follow-up survey when they have events like this. I forgot what it's called, John. Remember they have the I think it's maybe event survey. Something. It's in the patrol guide. They're supposed to do a post follow-up survey. I wonder what it says. 0 protesters, right? They were 200 feet from Madison Square Garden. Again, more gaslighting, lying. This is what they do. Again, I want to shout out Amazing Aunt. It's amazing she said that. That's really smart. That's the only truth he's ever told is that he said he lied because he lies about everything. He's lying so much that he has to lie about other lies. It just continues on, and that's what you get this administration. Oh, there's no protesters. Yeah, of course they're not protesting in front of MSG. I would that MSG is a zone that's blocked off. Again, John Chell, more lying. The only thing he told the truth about, it was his facial expression. That he was surely enjoying himself. This was a John Chell moment. But hey, John, I want to ask you when you get a chance. John and I are quite curious. How about those 511 pants? If you can tell us what's going on with those, I appreciate it because that might be the corruption you're involved in. We're very curious about it. So when you get a chance, if you can let us know about those.
Yeah. And the Craylo cause. Could you just let us know which non-members of the NYPD have rentals from New York City taxpayers? We'd appreciate that info. But John Chell thinks it's his day. He doesn't realize that Donald Trump, this is actually a Trump rally. He thinks it's a John Chell rally. So in the post-op analysis, I think what should be done is don't let your chief of patrol speak on camera ever. Check, right? Don't let your chief of patrol or any member of the department act like a fanboy at a political rally. Check. And while we're at it, Eric Adams, how about we don't allow members of the New York City Police Department, namely Kaz Daughtry and John Chell, show up at Somos, which is a political fundraising event for Democrats in Puerto Rico, like they did last year as well. So these guys are so politically aligned. I mean, and when it comes out, if it comes out that they were involved in ballot harvesting, that they were involved in nefarious acts around ballots, election tampering, election interference, bundling money for donations like Ed Caban's right-hand man was, the guy that flew up through the ranks. He was bundling money for Eric Adams' campaign, and the campaign just threw him under the bus and said he acted inappropriately while working for the NYPD. So if you think all these guys weren't involved in that, you're out of your mind. But, that dude might have been the fall guy, the guy that they're saying, has ties to the Chinese Communist Party. But I think, I wouldn't be shocked if that all comes out as well. So he's a MAGA in the sheets, but woke in the streets because, were you involved in ballot harvesting, John? Did you know about it, or did you just pretend like you didn't know about it? Did you see what was going on all the straw donors, or did you just pretend you didn't know about it? What was going on at all these nightclubs and these places, and what were the talks that you were directly involved in, and who did you target based upon who your boss looked at as a political adversary, right? I mean, I know that myself and Eric were targets because we were political adversaries of your boss. So who else was that? It's going to be a lot of people, folks. It's going to be a lot of people. All right, let's go further through this complete embarrassment of a chief of patrol.
God, and that was the message we were sending. Not today.
Not today. You know, the NYPD has a really tough job. You guys are the greatest and the largest police force in America, but there are concerns now because of a lot of the policies, because of the revolving door of justice, the district attorneys that are just not prosecuting the people the way they need to, the judges that are letting people out when they should be, behind bars. Your hands are tied as cops, right? You can arrest all the people you can, but if they're just letting them out, what are you going to do about it?
Look, our hands are not tied. Our mayor lets me play offense, lets our cops play offense, and we're bringing crime down in the city. We're the safest city in America, and we're going to keep doing that.
Well, Congressman.
What do you got?
You gotta love his one-liners. Oh yeah, we're playing offense. You're playing offense, really? You're playing offense with a gun detection scanner that couldn't detect one firearm. You're playing offense with a robot in subway system that was an epic fail. You're playing offense with drones that barely even work, that don't have the capabilities, according to what Kaz Daughtry has put out to the public. You're playing offense with approximately 97% of fare evaders that pass into the New York City subway system are not first to search. What kind of offense you playing? The only offense that this administration is playing under John Chell is vehicle pursuits, which is a tactic we are in complete opposition of. We've articulated it here. We've debunked how it's not a crime fighting tool that is effective or a good strategy, and it never was, even when times were good. Here's John Chell doing more lying. At the same time, he has to be a fan for Donald Trump. But, of course, he has to make sure that he continues to pander to his boss, Eric Adams. He doesn't mention that Eric Adams is under indictment, but he's still pandering to him. But, hey, listen, he might last to January 1st. So after January 1st, John Chell, if you're still there, you could say how you really feel. But maybe something would creep up about these 5'11" pants, or maybe something else will creep up, and maybe you're on your way out the door, either to 233 Broadway or 500 Pearl Street. This is just a complete self-serving media opportunity that John Chell takes in Kaz Daughtry at every opportunity. Why is he even there? John, do you think that any chief of patrol should be in this facet of media tour while it's a Trump rally? It's not even just this is not a POTUS event, right? Where the police department works, which is when the president of the United States comes into town. This is a pro-Trump rally that he's there inside. I mean, isn't he busy that he needs to be outside? No, apparently he's not busy because there's nothing going on according to him. I don't think he should even be there.
I mean, I think that the way Ray Kelly handled the police department was the way to handle the police department. I mean, Tom Donilon, that guy is, forget about it. Like, he's taken insignificant to a whole new level. The dude is not even there. Like, he's not even worth mentioning on this podcast anymore. Let's just call him like something. We'll come up with a nickname for him. I don't know. The old white drunk, something like that, because he's not worth even bringing up at this more. Because what was the first day that it came out in the news that, he was going to make changes? He hasn't made one change. We've had a protection extortion racket happen by the way, not right under their noses. These guys were involved in it. The entire upper echelon on the NYPD knew exactly what the hell was going on. No one could tell me any different. I don't care. Nobody could tell me any different. It's impossible that they didn't know. And if they didn't know, it's gross incompetence. It's gross incompetence. And they have no business being where they're at. So this guy doesn't make one change. But his one thing that he comes out is he says that there's going to be one voice for the department. And the voice is going to be Tom Donilon's. Yet I haven't heard Tom Donilon say one thing. I've only heard Kaz Daughtry, who is the real operational police commissioner, who has been the police commissioner under Eric Adams for the last 3 years. John Schell's his driver. And yet every now and then, John Schell's putting his face in front of the camera and just making a fool of himself and embarrassing the entire police department. He's politically, he is so politically confused, it's not even funny. He's in one instance, he's a progressive far left Democrat, hands off, gentle touch, lightest touch, to hear that we sent that message today. We sent a message today, it's not happening. You didn't send a message today, it's not happening. People are allowed to protest, guy. It's America. I don't know what you're talking about. You sent what message? I mean, listen, I don't love my only time I knock protesters is when they're planned and coordinated, taking over subway stations, airport terminals, buses, stopping you from going home from work because they're taking over streets and sidewalks. That's when I say that's not a protest any longer. The police department should be able to effectively control that, which he hasn't. I'm not telling you to stop the protests. I'm saying when things become illegal, you should take action. But you can't, because you've been handcuffed, because we've labeled it out. And for those of you that haven't watched the episode we did about the protest settlement agreement, I highly suggest you watch that, because we went in depth onto what Eric Adams signed off on. And then not a day later does Eric Adams blame the protest settlement agreement for why the police look inept when they're responding to protests that turn into riots that become illegal. He blamed the protest settlement agreement. So John Chell was handcuffed immediately there. He glosses over the statement about the DAs, right? And I mean, he has no business sitting up there, Eric. He has no business sitting up there. But if the NYPD wants to put someone up there, right? I mean, it should be the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, but we don't know who that is, because now Tariq Shepard's in uniform again. Now he's a 3-star chief. He's been bumped 7 ranks in the last 9 months. Now he's a uniform 3-star chief as the chief of staff. So we don't even know. Currently, the police department doesn't even have a Deputy Commissioner of Public Information. But to a question like that, you need to remain apolitical. I agree with that. He shouldn't be there in the first place. But if he's going to answer the answer to the question is, I don't get involved in politics. I just do what I'm told. I enforce the law. That's the answer to that question. The answer to that question is not crime is down and this is the safest city in America, because it's not the safest city in America. You might be working on bringing crime down, but your work has failed thoroughly. Crime's up over 30% since Eric Adams took office. Violent crime's up over 30% since Eric Adams took office. You talk arbitrary conjecture whenever we talk about crime data. So I get why you feel inept. And he knows a lot about being in Madison Square Garden, John Shelley. He hears all that she is, so it's making up for when him and Kaz walked out on the ice and they got booed.
I was thinking the same thing. It's funny you say that. So why do you think that the Gotham brothers weren't there as a pair? Right? It's quite interesting that Kaz Daughtry didn't make a presence, because Kaz Daughtry will take every media opportunity that he can take. So I have my suspicions. But John, why do you think Kaz Daughtry wasn't there?
He's not there because, I personally don't think Kaz Daughtry is nuanced enough in his thinking to really have a political stance. I think he just votes the way he's told. So I think he sees, any type of conservative as opposition to himself. I don't think that he really has a political thought. I think that if he ever had a discussion or a debate politically about what he thinks America is, people would see, or the direction America should go, people would just see how inept he truly is and how he really hasn't thought out anything. So I just think he's heavily politicized. I think Tariq Shepard's heavily politicized. The reason I'm saying this is because intimate conversations I know, which I won't reveal, that they're just heavily politicized, but I don't really think they're nuanced. It's like when, you call someone a racist. I'm like, they're not really racist. They're just ignorant. So when I think about politics with them, I don't really even say that. It's hard for me to even say that they're political. I just want to say they're ignorant and, they think what they're told. That's it. They don't really have their own thoughts. They don't have a direction for the country. They don't have a direction for the police department. They don't really see big picture. They just, they remind me of him and Tariq, they remind me of the dude.
What's crazy is Mayor Eric Adams, deep blue Democrat Mayor Eric.
Oh, that's weird. But they remind me of the dudes that they watch a documentary and then they think everything that they heard was fact. That's their political ideology. So Kaz Daughtry doesn't like Trump. He doesn't know why he doesn't like Trump. Tariq Shell doesn't like Trump. He doesn't know why. He watched something one time and he heard something and then he's just hanging on to these hooks. I watched that Michael Moore documentary one time, and did you know? And it's like, what? That's why they're not there. I think they're politicized.
I think this also further embarrasses the police department, just to show that they cherry picked the operations, right? Because we had Columbia University that was just a disaster for weeks, a disaster, and the police department struggled struggled to get that operation handled, struggled to get that under control with their gaslighting excuses for why they couldn't take care of that operation. But yet, John Chell, as the chief of patrol, is bragging how the police department is doing such a great job keeping and maintaining order at a Trump rally, which you would think would be a lot of opposition from, from a blue city where there'd probably be people in opposition to Donald Trump. But we're seeing that's completely a farce. But again, I think this was a very self-serving moment. I think the only person, if anyone should have been there, is the police commissioner. And absolutely, it should be. Listen, I don't agree with all the legislation, and I can't even worry about that. I can't get into politics. My job is to enforce the law and to make sure that we can keep the streets safe. That's what we're out there doing to the best of our ability. If you want to get the crime numbers, speak to the mayor. We're going to make it as safe as we can. But again, he shouldn't be giving out data. He shouldn't be giving out numbers because it's a complete lie. It's just another lie perpetuated by this police department. John Chell, the rest of upper echelon, they're a bunch of car salesmen. And again, I agree with you. I've been saying it for the longest time, John. You and I both have been pretty vocal to say that every chief on this job is compromised right now. They are compromised. Don't tell me that you don't see the appearance of impropriety and that there is definitely a level of corruption going on here, and you're sitting idle. We see it from out of state. I see it, for God's sakes. They want to make fun of me and get these jokes, which I think is hilarious, But I see it from an RV. I'm traveling. I'm on the road. You see it from Florida. So you're close to the king. You're at one police plaza. You're a chief, and you don't see it. I don't buy it. If you don't see it, it's because you don't want to see it, which means you're corrupt also because you're allowing corruption, which makes you a coward, or you're just too dumb. And if you're too dumb, that's absolutely ridiculous that you can't see it, and you shouldn't be there. And the bottom line is anyone that is there is because they want to be self-serving and pander. None of them should be there. None of them should be there. We need a complete overhaul.
Yeah. So this was a meme that we put out. I got up on the screen right now. John Chell. He's like, the mayor isn't handcuffing cops. Why do you ask? And on the bottom of it is Alvin Bragg and Eric Adams doing their little heart, and a photo from a New York Post article where Eric Adams was quoted saying, myself and Alvin Bragg are one and the same as it relates to public safety. So, like I said, John Chell is highly confused individual. Rob Lukács. The only reason big chiefs go to details like that is to hook up their friends and their families. I agree, right? They had their own little viewing area, their own little NYPD viewing area. And again, I always used to laugh when I would see these chiefs, especially dudes like that have a huge ego and they their whole image is them being a chief. And I would see them come walking down the parade route, and I would always go up to a rookie or someone, and I would you see this guy? He thinks the parade's for him. He doesn't realize it's for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, and it was and that's really what it was like. I mean, I would say I think every detail I ever did, there was at least one or two chiefs that were like that. They thought they were it. All these people are here for me. It's nah, dude, it's Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving Day parade. Nobody even knows who you are, bro. They don't know the difference between me and you. If anything, they're probably wondering why I'm not your boss. They're probably who is this dude? This guy's not even normal. Who is that guy? He's crazy.
Who is this idiot running around here with a chicken without a head here?
Yeah. And they're how's that guy gonna chase anybody down?
I always hate those details as a rookie. First of all, the left hand never spoke to the right hand. Right? How many times can we move the same barrier? One of those wooden barriers or those metal barriers? Some chief come over. Can you move this barrier? Yeah. You move the barrier. Another chief goes, can you move it here? Do you guys talk to each other? Or you just come over and tell us to move it because you can?
No, they fight amongst each other through you because they're cowardly. They're absolutely cowardly. And so they fight amongst each other. It's happened to me several times. It's happened to me several times where I just got fed up and was I don't care. Just write me up at this point. You guys don't want to talk to each other. It is what it is, because it's ridiculous. And Yvette says, I do need to give a shout out to the NYPD. Their operations, yes, they were immaculate, and that deserves praise. Again, overall, no injuries, and that's what matters. And you know what? You're 100% right, Yvette. I think it's twofold. One, I think it's the people that were there. that get dogged out, that get treated like they were there for a Nazi rally, which is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And I want to get into that a little bit too. But yeah, you're 1000% right. It's the hard work of the men and women of the NYPD. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, the entire upper echelon of the NYPD is grossly incompetent. They're grossly incompetent, and more than likely, the majority of them are corruption prone and already compromised through corruption. So I'm going to tell you that right there. However, the NYPD is such a well-oiled machine that the people that actually make the wheels turn are not these people that you see that are public facing. They're not the people, they're not the party police. You know, we put out that logo a lot. It's actually on the coffee cup. We have the party police. And we're making fun of these people, right? They're camera whores. They're in front of the camera. They love themselves. They think who they are. They're completely incompetent. They rose through the ranks. Those aren't the people that make the wheels turn. There's somebody that's in Manhattan South. There's probably a lieutenant, a captain, and they put together these detailed plans, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. And then they'll groom somebody else, and they'll do it for years and years and years. So it's the hard work of the rank and file of the NYPD that puts together operations like this. Same people when we saw the RNC. So it's twofold. It's one, that was great work in the NYPD, and that shows exactly how they could stop and quell these nightly riots and shutdowns of critical infrastructure in New York City, but they don't. So this shows you exactly that they could restore order in New York City in 1 second if they let the rank and file do what they need to do. But it also shows you the people that were there that day. You know, Joe Borelli. Joe Borelli put out a great tweet yesterday. I actually reshared it. Not a fan of Joe Borelli at all. But Joe Borelli put out a great tweet, and he said, FYI, the huge police presence is not there for the MAGA crowd, meaning they're not there because they're not worried about the people that are going to see Donald Trump doing anything. They're not worried about that. So 100% shout out to everybody. Shout out to the people that attended the event. Shout out to the NYPD. And, you know, I don't give a shout out to all the people that are trying to downplay it. There's a handle on X, New York City Cop. I don't know if any of you guys follow him. It's with a K, K-O-P-P. And he just shows you all the beautiful things about New York City. He'll go on an evening stroll in Soho, and he'll show you, this is New York City. Or he'll go to the public library where they have that rooftop view and show you the beautiful public library. Or he'll go by the water. So, and he does that because his account is to praise New York City, because New York City is the greatest city in the world, and it is a beautiful city. So he doesn't hone in on all of the crime and all of the horrible things and all the ugly things we see in New York City. He hones in on the beauty in New York City. However, yesterday, that same account goes to Madison Square Garden and takes a picture of garbage on the ground. And he's like, see what happens when these people come in from out of town, these MAGA people, and leave garbage all over my city. Please clean up. So one, you know, politicians and people who really have bad cases of Trump derangement syndrome are trying to paint the Trump rally as it was not New York City residents, which couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, there was some people that came in from upstate and Long Island. New Yorkers, by the way. So they're New Yorkers, but there were a ton of New York City residents there. I had a ton of friends who were there. I could have watched a million lives from that place from a million different people. I mean, there was a ton of people there, the New York City residents that were there. They're trying to paint that out, and then they're trying to paint it as a Nazi rally, and they're trying to paint how horrible the people are, and they're trying to go after all of the people because some little comedian said something, you know, and they want, you know, he told the joke that was absolutely horrible, and he bombed on the stage. So they're trying to paint all of the people as horrible, but really the overall, if you look at it, there were no injuries. And it was a mass gathering of individuals for a political rally, and nothing happened.
You know what? And thank God nothing did happen, because I'm sure the police would have had a different response at a Trump rally than they do at a Union Square riot, because it's conservative Americans. But, you know, what's interesting about all this is that John Chell just continues to live a life of hypocrisy. It's complete hypocrisy from the upper echelon of the police department. And thank God the system is in such a place. We spoke about this on prior episodes, and I told you, and if anybody remembers, I spoke about it. If you ever have an opportunity, I read the book by Steve Jobs. And what Steve Jobs talks about is before his unfortunate and untimely death. And he's brilliant. He talks about how a system is more important than the people that actually make up an organization. Because if you do have amazing people and you lose those people and they're replaced with people that are not as good, does the system fall apart? So the system has to be in place. So thank God the NYPD has a strong system. The paramilitary organization and the rank structure that the NYPD has, which is paramilitary, is a strong system and allows the police department to function as beautifully it does when it comes to crowds. And I mean, let's be honest, there's no one better than the NYPD when it comes to controlling crowds. That's one thing. The NYPD is by far superior when it comes to controlling crowds and controlling masses. Not what we see when it comes to these pro-Palestinian riots, because the police department appears to intentionally not do their job accurately and appropriately, but they could, even with the gross incompetence that we have with this upper echelon of police department. But it shows you the system in place is such a strong foundation that even with the level of incompetence we have right now, the appearance of impropriety, also simultaneously with a corruption probe going on with the upper echelon of the police department, that the police department is still able to be as effective as possible because the system is in place. So if we get the right people in, if we had an overhaul and we get the right people and the right leadership of the New York City Police Department, you could see the mountains that we could climb because the system is powerful. So here we go. Let's switch gears. Here's Donald Trump on Joe Rogan. His statement couldn't be better. It's outstanding, and we'll get into that. John, let's play, brother.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of people are saying Trump's economic plan is disastrous. I just want to say real quick, Kamala does not have an economic plan. It's more of the same. She said she wouldn't change anything from the Joe Biden administration. Donald Trump last night said that he was going to stop taxes on overtime. Right? He's putting more money in middle-class America. Who does overtime? Middle-class Americans. Middle-class and poor Americans do overtime. Right? That's who does overtime. The rich don't do overtime. The rich barely do an 8-hour day. Right? We're the people that did the overtime. Right? I'm still hurting from the amount of overtime I did. Like, I still am not physically, mentally the same person that I was after years of abusing my body, lack of sleep, all of this. And everyone that falls out of that, as you retire, you'll see that, like, wow, I really beat the crap out of myself doing that job and doing all that overtime. So he's going to alleviate tax on overtime. He's going to alleviate tax on tips. So the people that work our restaurants are going to bring home more money. What happens when the poor and the middle class have more money? The economy flourishes. They're able to buy more things. They're able to provide for their family. They're able to keep our businesses afloat here. So I think those two things are genius. And I think to show really what a big heart he has and what we really need to do is, and I've been saying this forever, anyone who's Social Security eligible or elderly will no longer pay tax on their Social Security, which is, I mean, it's brilliant and it's beautiful and it should have happened a long time ago. And he's the only one that's going to do it. And again, that's more money for them. That's more money for their grandchildren. They're going to spend that money. They're going to vitalize the economy. So Kamala Harris has no economic plan. I thought right when I heard that, I don't care what you think about Donald Trump. I don't care what you think about him personally. If you're not voting for him just based on that, never mind the fact that he does not want to bring us into foreign wars when Kamala Harris does. He wants to end them. He wants to create world peace. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. So this is a great clip that Eric's talking about. This is Donald Trump talking about the FBI. But like Eric said, doesn't matter. We're concerned with the system. We're not concerned with the losers up top like John Chell. We're not concerned with those guys. I'm not concerned with John Chell. I could care less. When we talk about the NYPD, when we knock the NYPD, we're knocking the leadership. When you're knocking the military, you're knocking the leadership. You are not knocking the rank and file. Now, at least not me anyway. At least not Eric. At least nobody here. We're not knocking the rank and file. We're saying that the leadership up top is politically confused. They're politically motivated. They're motivated for personal gain. The rank and file, the people that make the wheels spin, are the people that matter. And Donald Trump nails it here. He completely nails it, and we'll get into it further. Well, just listen to what he has to say here.
Because FBI is great. The people there, not the top people, the real people, the people that work there. It's like the real generals that I told you about that defeated ISIS in record time. The FBI guys are great. I'll bet you I'd be at 95% in the FBI.
I bet that's right.
Underneath.
Yeah.
And because FBI is great.
You know what's interesting about this, John? Either Donald Trump is just spot on or he watches this podcast, because we spoke on this podcast how the Detectives Endowment Association had a poll. That poll was first initiated and actually spoken about on the, the Wanna Be a Tough Guy podcast, or a Tough to Watch podcast by Bo Dietl, where the president of the Detectives Endowment Association discussed how there's going to be a political vote for a public endorsement when it comes to the presidential candidate for this particular election race going on right now. And what did we hear? Rumor has it from credible sources that 95% of the detectives endorsed Donald Trump. And yet, the Detectives Endowment Association, along with the other unions of the New York City Police Department, have not provided what their public endorsement is, if they're endorsing Kamala Harris or if they're endorsing Donald Trump. And you ask me, there's only one horse to pick in this race. It speaks volumes. But we also have to ask, who are those other 5%? That 95%, I believe the 95% is what Donald Trump is talking about. Even he says, in light of the mistakes right now by the FBI and law enforcement throughout this entire country, it's not the mistakes of the rank and file. The rank and file are exemplary on all levels, on different facets of law enforcement throughout this country. They're doing the job as they're paid and trained to do. They're there because they care. But it's the leadership that has been an epic fail. And this was spot on, this statement right here. It's spot on. It's the leadership, right? He doesn't have the silver tongue. That's the way they portrays it, but he's right. And that's why I would say it's not important that you have a silver tongue. It's important that you're compassionate. You actually mean what you say. And I believe he means what he says here. It's the leadership. It's the leadership of the FBI that has failed this country. It's the leadership of the Secret Service. It's the leadership of the police departments. And especially here we are, New York's Finest Retirement Unfiltered podcast, putting our focus. It's the leadership of the New York City Police Department that has failed the rank and file and failed the city. Failed leadership. I can't wait till we see it overhaul. So he's right, 95%. So who are those 5%? Is it leadership? Is it union trustees? I'm amazed that it's not 100%. You have to ask yourself, who are those 5% that are voting, that are not endorsing Donald Trump? The only presidential candidate, the only one of the politicians right now throughout this entire country that actually supports law and order.
I mean, honestly, I don't even care about who the 5% is. I mean, the thing that is like, it's crazy is he nails it totally. Like, I think, and it's not just in law enforcement and it's not just in the military. I speak to a lot of, I worked with a lot of different trade unions. So I know a lot of different guys, carpenters, electricians, steam fitters, iron workers. I know all people like that, dock workers, longshoremen, crane operators. I know every type of trade that's ever been in New York City. I know all the unions. All of the unions heavily back Democrats the same way that they do in law enforcement. All of their unions back it. However, it's like the one weird dude that always goes left. And 99% of them are right-wing conservative guys. 99%. Electricians, plumbers. You'll get some guys in the union that are, I'm a Democrat. It's like, yeah, because you're looking to fill your pocket. You're not really a Democrat. You don't even know the policies. You're just going along to get along. You don't even know what you're talking about. And but like the majority of people that I talk to in the unions, they're like, I don't even know anyone that's not voting for Trump. Yet all of the unions are voting Democrat. All of the unions are saying they're giving their money and they're giving their endorsement to the Democrats. So it's the same thing. So like I don't even focus on the 5%. Like, who are you? Because it doesn't matter. To me, what does it show? It shows overwhelmingly the majority of workers in that are involved in masculine trades, labor unions, military, or law enforcement, they all support Donald Trump overwhelmingly, 95%. Yet their unions, you would never know that when you look at their unions. Firefighters, you would never know that when you look at their unions. You would never, ever know that, right? Because if you are an uninformed or low informed, or you just don't know cops, firemen, or tradesmen, you don't know who these people are. You're going to say you live in a rural part of America. I don't know. The cops support him. I guess he's doing a good job, right? I guess Kamala Harris is the voice of the rank and file of the police. It's like, nope. Sorry, that's not true. It's not accurate. It's misinformation. Those unions are actually working against their members. They're working against their own members. So, like, I don't even care who it is. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I think what the DEA did is disgusting, and I think I can't. I don't know if I'll ever stop talking about it because it's so disgusting what they did. That dude, the guy Scott Monroe, who's the president of the Detectives Endowment Association, he went on One Tough podcast to listen to on 77 WABC, hosted by Bo Dietl, another fake, phony, wannabe, yeah, I'm a big bad detective, yeah, wannabe gangster, wannabe all this stuff. Loves Eric Adams, loves the progressive anti-cop Eric Adams. All about himself, has nothing about anything else but Bo Dietl and a celebrity. So he has Scott Monroe on. Scott Monroe says that he's going to bring his members into the political process. He's going to give them the ability to see who the union's going to endorse for president. And they hold that vote. And we hear from every member 95%. So Donald Trump nails it. 95% in favor of Donald Trump. That is by far the overwhelming majority of New York City detectives support Donald Trump. And not only has the union not endorsed Donald Trump, they haven't even released the results publicly. They publicly go out and saying they're having this poll, and then they hide like cowards and never even give the results out. So, and like 95% is like basically everybody. It's basically everyone. I don't care if it was 51%. The results should have went out, and he should have been endorsed. I don't care if it was 0.05%. He should have won, and it should have, but it wasn't that. It was the overwhelming majority. And like a coward, like a politician, they did not release the results. Absolutely disgusting. It's not disgusting for Trump supporters. It's disgusting for your members because their voices are not being heard. So that's what we're doing on this podcast, is we're allowing those voices to be heard. So, Mr. President, 95% of New York City detectives wanted to endorse you. The same holds true. We're saying it right now. Law enforcement, military, masculine trades, firemen, everyone. So you're dead right when you say 95% of the FBI would vote for you. You're 1,000% right. He's talking about the rank and file. He's not talking about the political hacks and cronies. Even though John Chell, I believe, will vote for you, he's a corrupt, spineless, egotistical individual.
Well, I think the bottom line is members of law enforcement, especially the NYPD, have to stop remaining in silence, right? We're retired, but we're not silenced. We're a voice from outside to help within. We have the opportunity to make an impact. Our friends, our listeners on the podcast, if you're active right now, we can speak volumes for you. But at the same token, you can't be shy. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. You got to get on the phone. If you're a detective right now, if you're a member of the DEA, the Detectives Endowment Association, you need to get on the phone and you need to say, I want my union dues getting to use. There was a poll. I voted. Where are those results? If you're a member of the police union, if Pat Hendry is your union boss, you should call him up on the phone. He's the president. He's living a very handsome life. Very handsome life. Call him up on the phone. Call the union offices. Say, where are my union dues going? Why do we not have a public endorsement? I want to know that we get someone in office that's law and order. I want to know that things will get better from my job, that we can build morale and build camaraderie. Those answers, those questions have not been asked. You have a right to ask these questions, especially the police union. You pay a handsome salary. You pay a handsome amount of dues, $51.84 bi-weekly. That's a lot of money. Do the math on a yearly basis of what you're paying times supposedly 36,000 cops, according to John Chell. We know there's not that many right now. The union's making less money than they did before, but it's still a substantial amount with the amount of interest that they have and the investments that they have. You need to call them, start asking, why are our dues going to politicians that are in complete opposition and they're polarizing to the police department, not even online, and maybe they have different views about law and order. These politicians that they send their money to vote for defund the police. Defund the police hurts you. They vote for legislation such as the 58 to be public, which hurts you physically, hurts you emotionally, hurts you. It gives you potential civil liability that makes your job much more vulnerable. You have to start calling these unions and not be afraid to ask questions. Let's move forward, John.
So, so everybody's upset. I know a lot of people are upset on here about the comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, but this is from a Harris Walsh rally the day before, and absolutely no one's upset about it. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why it's not acceptable for Republicans to have comedians tell racist jokes at their rallies, but it's fine to have comedians tell racist jokes at their rallies. So I it's weird.
Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall, and George Lopez said, you better build it in one day, because if you leave that material out there overnight. Donald Trump.
Right? What is he trying to say? That Mexicans steal. Oh, no, not racist at all. Not racist at all. But I guess you could have comedy sometimes, but not all the time. You could have comedy. Democrats could have comedy, but conservatives can't have comedy. Got it.
And it's funny how they found the they put George Lopez up there, because he's arguably one of the most when it comes to comedians or anybody in Hollywood, he is the most expressive in how much he hates Donald Trump. So it's so convenient that they put George Lopez up there. But it's okay for him to make a joke that's directed to Mexicans. But God forbid somebody else makes a joke about Mexicans or people crossing the border. Oh, there would be an uproar. Oh, he's against immigration and against what this country was built on. He hates Mexicans. But it's okay when it comes to George Lopez. We see complete hypocrisy when it comes to Democrats. It's absolutely disgusting. It really is a joke.
So Alexander Vindman, loser of the day yesterday, he literally puts picture side to side. He puts the 1930s Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden. He puts it side by side with the Trump rally yesterday. And he's trying to make the comparison that because there was a sold out Madison Square Garden, aka the world's most famous arena, that is his comparison for Nazis. He said, I've resisted calling Trump and MAGA fascist, mainly because I've understood fascism and Nazism as almost incomprehensibly evil. But the reality is MAGA is today, who the Nazis were before they seized power. There is no better historical comparison to MAGA than the Nazi of the early Germany. I mean, this is insane. It's insane to me, dude. It's completely insane to me. Like, what do you think about all of these comparisons to Donald Trump and his supporters, which are more than half of Americans at this point, that they're fascists and they're Nazis?
All right. First of all, I think it's actually disgusting. I think it's hate rhetoric. It's anti-sentiment that comes from the left. It's absolutely ridiculous to actually make this comparison. We've seen more violence in this country throughout our historical timeline from the Democrats than we've seen from the conservatives. Absolutely. Any president that we've seen that has been shot or attacked, it's usually from a Democrat. If you look at history, and our presidents have been attacked, it's from a Democrat. So again, this is just absolutely ridiculous. More hogwash. I think it's shameful to do this, to try to make this comparison. So if anybody is completely aggressive, it's the Democratic movement, not this conservative movement. Again, and not only it's not a conservative movement, we have a lot of Democrats that support Trump. So they're actually saying that Democrats are also supporting this Hitler ideology. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just to have a little fun, I think it's kind of funny. Yvette said, at Eric, that decor, elephants, bubbles, a salt lamp. Who's your decorator? Pretty funny. Actually, these are pictures from my kids. My kids make these drawings. So my kids actually decorate it. I let them do it. So just to make things light. But yeah, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, and listen, and growing up being Jewish myself, it's absolutely ridiculous that they make the correlation that this is some type of Hitler event. These are Americans. These are Americans that care. These are Americans that want to be the best country again. They want to be known for having the best economy. They want to know for having. They want to be known for having a free country. This is shameful that he put this out.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just him. I mean, it's like, you know, we have elected officials. We have numerous. You know, I think Trump they got him good. He's like, you see all the fake news back there. You see all the fake. He's 100% right. I mean, I think at this point, I'm thinking that. Like any mainstream news is it's just not on the level. You're like corporate media. That's why I don't consume it. I think it's complete nonsense. But they're literally trying to make this comparison, and I'm like, the only fascists I see are the people that are trying to jail their political opponents, the people that want to turn your sons into boys, your daughters into men. They want to take away your parental rights. They want to take away free speech. They attack their political opponents. They want to shut them down. They want to ruin them. They want to mask you. They want to force medical intervention on you and your children. The only things I see that are related to fascism come from the left. I mean, they are, you know, it's hysterical when people, you know, and I think a lot of people would tell me this. Antifa just means anti-fascist. And I'm like, I don't care what it says. I don't care what it says. You know, you can't tell me that you're anti-fascist and then do all of the stuff that fascists do. Like, you can't say, oh, I'm not really a communist. I just don't think you should own anything. It's like, okay, well, you're a communist then. Yeah, but that's not what the title of my organization is. Okay, well, that's not the title of your organization, but that's exactly what you are. And that's the same thing when I hear anything from the left, when Antifa is an idea, it's not an organization. No, it's actually an organization. They call themselves anti-fascist, but they are the closest thing to the brown shirts that we've ever seen since 1930s Germany. They are the equivalent of the brown shirts. They're the modern day brown shirts. I've said it hundreds of times online. For those of you that don't know, Leroy Press or Viral News said that I've been working with the far left for a long time, and I've recently exposed myself. He put that out online. So yeah, you know, take that where it lays. I've been working with Juju, but hysterical. But I just think it's disgusting it's disgusting. It's hateful to even make these comparisons. But the people that are actually using violence and assaulting people and using political lawfare and accusing others of exactly what they are guilty of, those people are what traditionally should be known as the fascists. So I think it's disgusting. I hated the statement. Eric Adams recently came out online and he said, you know, he was at a press conference. They asked him about it. And he actually said that he thinks that it shouldn't be said. Like it shouldn't be calling Donald Trump or any of his supporters fascists. And I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, like, you know, I'm not, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, are you mad that he said this? I'm like, no, I'm not mad. Why would I be mad that he for once said, not for once, because sometimes he says things that are correct. He just never does them. I'm not mad about it. I'm happy he said it. That's what any normal person should say.
Logic's Finest completely summed it up and nailed it right here. Karl Marx said, accuse your enemy of what you're doing. That's absolutely right. He nailed it, Logic's Finest. You're spot on. And what's interesting about the left, I always say this all the time, they're so progressive that they're actually regressive. They're so progressive that they bring us back in time, that we went full circle and went back in time when it comes to the progressives. And it's interesting, right? We talk about fascism. Antifa is supposed to be anti-fascist. And what do we see? I mean, the best analogy or the best vision that we could see of how Antifa actually plays out and does what Karl Marx said is accuse them of what you're doing. When it came time, when it was the George Floyd riots, and the Antifa was saying defund the police and we don't need this police force, right? F-12 and all this kind of stuff. what happened in Seattle with Chaz and Chop in the zone, and they ran it like it was a law enforcement headquarters where you had to have ID to go into the zone, and they were checking people. They were running it as a police force, and they were operating as they had patrols and operating as an actual police department. So completely ironic. That's what you get from these fascists. They accuse you of doing what they're doing. So yeah, it's a completely smart move. Largest fights. I think you completely nailed it and you hit the mark.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I think, and, and then everyone's like, a lot of people were upset that Eric Adams defended common sense. I mean, I thought that was ridiculous. So here's now Trump at the rally talking about Eric Adams. And again, people on both sides are upset about this. I got to say, at first, when I heard Trump defending this and putting this assertion that Eric Adams is just a victim of political lawfare and it's just because he took some upgrades on a plane, I'm like, it's not really what happened. I don't really love it. I was a little upset about it, but then when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Eric Adams is done. If Donald Trump is giving him a pat on the back and attaboy, it's literally the equivalent of you being with you stopping a bunch of dudes in the street that and they're talking smack about you and to you, and you're like, yeah, and you're a cop, and you're like, yeah, bro, hit me up later. And then all his boys are sitting there like, yo, you talk to the police? It's literally the equivalent of that. So I love it. So here's Donald Trump talking about Eric Adams.
And I want to thank Mayor Adams, because Mayor Adams has been treated pretty badly. When he said that this whole thing with the migrants coming into New York, this is just not sustainable. We can't do it. We're trying to run a city. We got 100,000 migrants coming. We can't do it. We just can't do it. It's not feasible. It's not good. He said it very nicely. I said, well, he's going to be indicted by these lunatics for saying that. A year later, he got indicted. I think they upgraded his seat in an airplane. I hear that's a very serious charge. They've upgraded my seat a lot too. I used to fly commercial. I don't fly it so much anymore, but they'd see me back there and, sure, would you like an upgrade? I don't know. Maybe it's something else, but I have to tell you, he's been really good. And he said that they shouldn't be calling Trump a dictator because it's not true. That's nice. That was nice. Very nice. So we want to thank Mayor Adams. He's going through a hard time with these people. These are lunatics, by the way.
What do you think, Eric?
I think this is classical Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I think it's actually pretty smart the way he's doing it. This is exactly Sun Tzu. If anybody has had an opportunity, I think John and I talk about books all the time, right? I think the best education you get is through books, and you get to read and get different perspectives, and really changes your point of view and also opens your vocabulary. So for our friends and listeners, check out Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every Marine has to read it. I know John read it. A lot of people read it, but it's a great book. This is exactly classic Art of War. He's actually making the enemy of his enemy his friend, right? Nighthawk 13666 actually just said the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Absolutely. But him saying what happened to him is badly is saying, hey, what they did to Eric Adams is what they did to me, proving that it's completely wrong by also panning to him. I think it's hilarious. I think it's a really smart ploy. Rather than saying, you know what, Eric Adams, good for you, right? Because if he did that, everybody would say, oh, wait a minute. How is it good for him? But it's bad for you. It's a very smart move. It's a very smart campaign. It was pretty funny when he got indicted. So there's a little bit, he's kind of laughing there at the same time, which he rightfully should. But I think it's a really smart move. This is the Art of War classic.
Yeah, I'm going to take it back. I said I don't think that he's too dialed in on New York City. I'm going to take it back, and I think a vet corrected me, or Sherry. I don't know who it was. And I agree with you, because now that I'm listening to it again, and you hear that the audience just isn't reacting to him, they're like kind of like a little, actually some boos when he brings up Eric Adams' name, right? And he continues to go. It's totally a political strategy. It's 100% a political strategy, because like I said earlier, he is a social genius. When he's at, Tony Hinchcliffe might be the top of his game in the comedy club. He obviously has no business being a political rally, and somebody should give him a smack right in the back of his head. I know, Tony, if I see you, I'm gonna give you a nice whiff right off the back of your head for being an idiot. But I think Donald Trump knows how to read the room. He knows how to play these crowds like a fiddle. And he knew that his comment flopped. And not only did he double down on it, he kept going further and further in it because he knew because his goal wasn't to have the crowd cheer. Because I'll bring them back in a second. I'll bring the crowd back to me in a second. But right now, I need some headlines I got to make. Right? I remember when you said you were going to have those jail open for me and Rikers. I remember all of that, So, yeah, is Eric Adams at this point trying to button up to Donald Trump for a potential pardon? Is he trying to keep the political lines open? Yeah, I think that's a smart move, and I'm the same way, dude. I don't, all these people that attack us and all this, I don't really want any nonsense with any of them, but they just keep coming. I'm like, if they were to back off, I'll back down. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to deal with this every day. I think it's stupid. I think it harms all of us. I think everybody should just play nice in the sandbox. But, unfortunately, when people are trying to take you down, you have to do it. But as of right now, Eric Adams isn't in the position to take Donald Trump down any longer. Eric Adams could just be used as a political ploy at this point. I don't think anybody should be upset about any of this. And again, Eric Adams has 4 other investigations on top of him, corruption investigations. I believe he will be indicted in nearly all of them. I think he'll even get subsequent charges in just the initial one that he got. And it's a lot bigger than him just taking upgrades. It's not just him taking upgrades. That's a media spin on it. But I think that's what Donald Trump's end goal was the headlines. It wasn't really to feed to the crowd because he's a smart dude. And he knew that bombed. When you listen to that, the tone of the crowd went down. There were boos. The only times he got claps, and it wasn't even a loud clap, was when he said that Eric Adams said, "I'm not a fascist," because people agree with that. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it was brilliant on his part to say, right, because what he did was he correlated to himself. Basically what he said is Eric Adams is guilty, right? Because what he say? He says, I had upgrades. He's just getting upgrades. That's all it is, right? But maybe there's going to be more indictments. I don't know if there's something else. So he basically said he knows that he's full of it and that he's guilty because he's saying, I had upgrades. There's nothing wrong if it's just upgrades, but there's more of what's going on here. And then what did he also say? He said that Eric Adams, I'm sorry, let me just be backtracking on that. What he's basically saying is that when he becomes president, Donald Trump, that he's going to hold these sanctuary cities accountable. Because what do you say? Eric Adams said we have this migrant crisis. We have this problem. It's not sustainable. So what is he saying? He's saying that sanctuary cities are a problem. I think the message was beautiful. I think if the crowd really listened and took the time out, I think it was brilliant. I think it's really smart. It's the art of war. It's not showing your hand, and I believe in that. I think it was brilliant.
You're right. And you know what? He's actually said he's going to outlaw sanctuary cities in across the country. And he can do that because they violate federal law. You can't disregard federal immigration law. So he actually can do that, So I mean, honestly, I thought the rally was great last night. I thought Hinchcliffe bombed. He was the worst. He should have never opened, shouldn't even have been there. Terrible. He did terrible. But like at the other end of it, I think the rally was really well done. I think it was good. I think a lot of people had fun. I know a lot of people that were there. They kept the crowd into it the whole time. There were people there from 2:00 in the morning the night prior. So I thought it was a great event. There were people outside watching it. I mean, the streets in New York were alive last night. It was a real good vibe. There's a lot of people. I personally believe this is 1980 all over again. I don't think, everyone, the media, the entire media is relating this campaign to 2016, and I don't see it. I see it the opposite end around. I think Trump is going to win in a landslide. And if he doesn't, I'm going to say what I believe about the election. I believe it's too big to be rigged. I can't see any possible way where he loses legitimately. I can't see any possible way. I think he will win states that people do not expect. Joe Borelli believes that he will lose New York by 13 to 14 points. I don't believe that. I think that there is a sentiment in this nation and across this country that change is needed. We need somebody who has a plan, somebody who's been there. It's a very weird time because we've seen 4 years of Donald Trump and how America was under the Donald Trump, and we've seen 4 years of how America was under Kamala Harris. And nobody's sitting here and saying, yeah, we need 4 more years of Kamala Harris. And she literally said she would not change one thing about what they did. It's disgusting. I mean, the price of orange juice, there's jugs of orange juice that were $7 years ago that is now $17. Same for milk, the same for eggs. Things are becoming unaffordable. There is zero plan in place to stop the inflation. Donald Trump is telling you, not only is he going to stop the inflation immediately, he's going to lower it and bring it down and making things affordable. And he already did it. He already did it. So I'm going to say right now, I'm picking him. I'm relating Kamala Harris to a DEI appointment. I'm relating her to taking a stewardess on the airport in an airplane and saying, you know what? We're going to make her the pilot of the plane. We should make her the pilot. She's never flew a plane. She's never took off the plane. She's never landed the plane. But, you know, she's worked in the airline before. She knows the airline industry. She's been there. We're going to promote her. And guess what? She's going to be the first. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, but I actually want someone that could pick up the plane, land the plane, fly through a storm, fly at night. Donald Trump's done all of those. He's done all of those under fire. He's had every emergency you could think of. I think I'm taking Donald Trump to fly that plane. I think I want Donald Trump to be the pilot of America. I don't want the stewardess to be the pilot of America. I think that those are the things that I see.
Absolutely. What do we also want to see? I want to see this country strong again, right? Because with strength brings peace. I believe we're also potentially headed to participate in what's potentially World War III is because we're now a weak country. Strength brings peace. And I think we see the hashtag a lot, BTB, which means back to blue. BTB should bring testosterone back. We have to bring the testosterone back to this country and be strong again. John, I saw it on Joe Rogan. Also, you put it out, and it was said by Donald Trump, according to Robert Kennedy, that 70% or more of Americans are not eligible for the military because of health concerns. I mean, that is insane. So 7 out of 10 of our young men and women cannot even serve in the military because of health. And one of the biggest factors is obesity. Tim Kennedy, former Green Beret and also UFC fighter, he said the same thing, that it's actually harder to get into the military than it is in college because people are getting they're not allowed in for health reasons, psych reasons. So we're in some real trouble. So I say BTB, bring testosterone back, make America masculine again. Let's be strong again. I think Donald Trump is bringing that strength. I mean, Donald Trump is an American badass. The bottom line, he was shot. He raised his hand up in the air as a true American. That's what we need right now more than ever. He is the man to bring the strength back to this country.
All right, so Dr. Phil, longtime Democrat, good friend of Oprah Winfrey. If any of you guys haven't seen that Oprah Winfrey interview with Donald Trump, I recommend you do it. Long time ago. And I think there was an interview one time that I watched where Donald Trump actually said that if he ran, his VP would be Oprah Winfrey. And now she hates his guts, which, you know, is laughable to me, but whatever. So here is Dr. Phil at the rally.
By the way, we didn't choose the name for that by random. Merit Street Media. This country was built on hard work, added value, and talent, not on equal outcome, not on DEI. This country was built on hard work. By the way,
I mean, brilliant. What do you think about that?
I think I think he aligns now with John Chell, right? Because John Chell and Kaz Daughtry were riding around with Dr. Phil. So again, we see that John Chell is a lot more MAGA than everybody expected, right? But when it comes to Eric Adams, he's woke. Yeah, listen, he's absolutely right. We don't need DEI. DEI is an infection, right? DEI is diverse, equity, and infection, not diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's an infection that has riddled through this entire country, destroyed the Secret Service, destroyed the FBI, destroyed law enforcement. It's destroyed this testosterone. It's made us weak. We are not stronger for it. John, I agree with you. I think that's a fantastic example. If we can't have someone fly the plane, why would we put them in that spot? And exactly that. We have right now, we don't have people that could control and fly the police department, run it properly because of DEI. So again, it's an infection that has riddled through this country, and it needs to go. Here's some more Joe Rogan right here. I think it's this is Dan.
Yeah, so he was and guys, definitely check this interview out, Rogan. It was 3 hours. I mean, I think, and then that's the other thing, like I personally, I can't stand politicians. I can't stand most politicians, like the overwhelming majority, like 95%. I can't stand them. And the reason I can't stand them is because they're not real people. Try to have a real conversation with a politician. Like if they come up to you, they will avoid you like the plague. They will avoid your question like the plague. And I've been doing it ever since I'm young. And I don't just do it with Democrats. I do it. I grew up in Staten Island in Southern Brooklyn, so I do it mainly with conservatives, and I watch them scour and run away like little girls. And that's my biggest problem with politicians is like, you're not real people. I have no problem with the guy that disagrees with me. I just want to know that you really do disagree with me. And I have no problem with the guy that aligns with me. I just want to know that you really actually align with me. These are your real thoughts, right? And the problem with politicians, I think, is that when they're not real people, they're not people that, like, you don't know who they are. And I think Joe Rogan outlines that in this podcast very well. He actually speaks for that on a few minutes too. And what you come to realize when you're watching this is like, Kamala Harris will never sit down in these 3-hour interviews because the America doesn't know who Kamala Harris is. She has this front, this phony cackle that she puts on, all of this stuff, and she can't sit there and expose her flaws and expose her weaknesses and expose her thoughts and what she thinks about issues and what she doesn't know about certain issues. And when you watch this podcast with Donald Trump, to me, it really humanized him a lot more. I actually liked him a lot more after watching this because he talks immediately about where he messed up. And I said where he messed up was his appointments. And he said where he messes up is his appointments. But he's like, I didn't know. I was never in politics. I was just, I took some bad advice and I had some bad people around me. And, and I think, when I think about that, it's like, all right, and now I really want him to be the president because I know myself. If you give me a test and I really wasn't prepared for it, and I bombed that test, which he didn't bomb, he did really well. But let's just say I did bomb that test. You give me that test the second time, I'm getting 100. I'm correcting all my mistakes. I'm going to know everything that I did wrong. And I think Donald Trump has done that throughout his career as a businessman, throughout his career as a celebrity. I think he's succeeded everywhere he went. So were there things that he didn't do properly? 100% there were things he didn't do properly that I thought he didn't do properly that I didn't agree with. And I think that a lot of the stuff I didn't agree with, he also thinks that he messed up into because he outlines those things in this podcast, most notably his appointments. And then also Joe Rogan brings on to the whole vaccine debate. And he talks about, Donald Trump says he supports vaccines and he goes on to the polio vaccine and how well it did. And then Rogan puts the counter narrative, well, hey, we're being told that it's only vaccine-induced polio that exists in countries or in the world now. It's not even actually polio in its purest form. And Donald Trump just looks at him and says, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know about that, Joe. He goes, that's why I'm bringing RFK Jr. into my camp to make America healthy again. So I thought it really humanized them. I don't know if anybody's on the fence, but I think if you are, you have to sit there and say, nobody's sitting down for 3 hours if they're not a real person, if this isn't really them. Kamala Harris is never sitting down with Joe Rogan for 3 hours and doing this.
I think that's a beautiful assessment, brother. Absolutely. That's what we want right now. We're tired of seeing your everyday politicians that are just completely on the surface. They're fake. They're phony. We don't know who they really are. There's no way sitting down for a 3-hour conversation. She sat with Brett Baer, which Brett Baer did a fantastic job and just completely debunked everything that she had in about 20 to 30 minutes. I think that in that interview, he also showed that she doesn't know her own policy. She kept saying to you, refer to my 80-page policy that's on its website. You should speak to that. You should know that inside and out. I mean, look, New York City police officers have to study a patrol guide that's thousands of pages and have to know it inside and out to become a sergeant in the police department. We should expect a presidential candidate to know an 80-page or policy that affects this entire country. I don't think it's too much of a task to expect. But of course, it's just not real. And she clearly is not the person for the job. And I think that shows a lot of humility. And humility is a great leadership trait to have. And that's what we need in this country right now. Someone that can admit, hey, listen, that's what a good leader is. I don't know what that is. I've said that all the time. You, as a leader, you don't have to be the best. You don't have to be the smartest, but you have to know who to put in the right place. You have to know how to use your tools and your resources in around you. So I think that's a lot of humility to admit that, hey, I made those mistakes because I didn't know, but now I've learned from it, right? I agree. You know, if I'm taking a practice test and the answers that I get wrong, I never look at it as a bad thing. I'm like, you know what? Those are answers I'll never get wrong again. If those are questions presented to me, I will 100% get them right. I always remember what I got wrong. And that's how we get better. So I think he showed that he's evolving. He shows humility. He shows dependability. He shows the capability to be decisive. These are leadership traits we should expect in a president that has to appoint people that are going to put this country in a position that we can move forward. Outstanding. Outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And then let's just end. We're going on 2 hours. Let's just end with this clip. This is the clip that you were talking about. And I think that it's really a sad state of affairs. I'm with you. You know, let's bring back testosterone. Bring it back, because this is, you know, make America masculine again should be the other thing, right? You know, we said make the NYPD masculine, make law enforcement masculine again, make America masculine again. This is a sad state of affairs. Listen to this clip. This is crazy.
Well, I was actually talking to RFK today, and he told me that more than 70% of young men are ineligible for the military because of their health.
I could see it.
That's
crazy. A lot of it's obesity.
So here's the life expectancy versus health expenditure.
Same chart.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Insane, dude. What do you think about that? 70%.
Well, I actually heard Tim Kennedy say it first, right? Like I said, if anybody know who Tim Kennedy is, he's a former UFC fighter. He also served as a Green Beret in Special Operations, and I heard him say that. And according to Tim Kennedy, he always says that it's harder right now to get into the military than it is to college. People don't get in because of health reasons, psych reasons. We have kids growing up that are on all kinds of meds. Kids are getting diagnosed with ADHD. Is it really ADHD, or is it just they need just good parenting? And we need to be stronger with our kids. And pretty much what I say, right? Bringing testosterone back, making people masculine. And that's not just boys, girls. You know, men and women need those masculine traits so that we can be strong. So it's no surprise to me. And here RFK is actually reiterating that. And they have the chart and the data to show more than 70%. That's insane. So just think about it right now, right? So it's 1% of the entire country serves the military. And I think the amount of the numbers change, but I think right now, I think it's 6% of the entire country is serving or has ever served in the military in some facet, whether they served one day or they served a couple years. I think it's 5 to 6% of the entire country. And yet more than 70% are ineligible. I think those are scary numbers. Those are scary numbers. It's a huge problem, especially right now, if potentially we're headed for World 3. These are scary numbers. Absolutely.
I mean, this is I don't like the way Tim Kennedy phrased it, though. It's not harder than it's ever been to get in the military. The problem is we don't have the people that could pass the physical exams anymore. We don't have the people that could pass. It's not that it got harder. It's that America got weaker. There's people that can't get in. So the problem is finding qualified people. It got harder to find qualified people. and 70% of young males being ineligible for the military, it weakens us in our world stance. It weakens us in our future. I mean, that is disturbing to me because I have 2 daughters and I think about their future. And then I think if they have girls, past that, where are the men? Where there's only going to be 30%, there'll be 10% by the time their kids are born, right? And I'm like, what is the progress for this nation? And I think it has a lot to do with our lifestyle. I think it has a lot to do with our food. There was a conversation in here about GMO food versus organic food. Joe Rogan was on the side of, well, we need GMO food so that we don't run out of food. And I'll agree, if there's no food, I'll take some GMO apples. But the majority of our food shouldn't be processed. That we shouldn't be eating things and ingredients in America that are outlawed in Europe because they kill people or because they're known to cause cancer or all of these other things. I think there should be a food standard across the world. And then, I was actually talking to a couple of friends this weekend, and they were talking about the food chart, like the food chart in America. And that's like the craziest thing. And they were saying how the dude that like was the inventor of cereals, he believed in abstinence. So he ate this cereal to bring his testosterone levels down so he didn't have the desires that he would have, right? And he was basically, and instead of dealing mentally and physically with what you go through as a man, right? Like you're a married man, like to stay in a relationship with just one woman, it's hard, right? You're a man, like you have other desires, you meet other women, but to do that, it takes a principled person. I'm going to stay in this relationship. I'm not going to cheat on my wife. I'm not going to do these things. I'm not going to embarrass my family. I'm not going to put my family in that position. It's hard. So what the food is doing to us is almost emasculating us itself. It's taking away our testosterone. It's taking away our desire. And you see that big push like, oh, don't work out. Don't eat meat. Why? I know what happens to me when I work out and when I eat meat. I feel the testosterone in my body. I feel my desire for sexuality go up. I feel all of those things. I feel I'm 44. After I work out and I eat a steak, I feel like I'm 17 again. You know what I mean? I feel the masculinity in my body. But like what we're doing is we're ripping the masculinity from our boys and from our children. We're telling them not to work, and we're putting them in this sedentary lifestyle. And we're teaching them that, oh, the only route for you to be successful is to go to college and sit behind a desk for 12 hours a day. And everyone I know that's successful does not do that. Everyone I know. Do I know people that make a lot of money that are in the corporate world? I do. They're few and far between. The majority of my friends, we weren't good students. We weren't the best kids on the block. They went into different trades, into different, law enforcement, into firefighting, tile work, construction, carpentry, electricians, steel workers, iron workers, worked down the docks. And they live very good lives, and they make a lot of money. And a lot of who started their own business. So I think, we need to get back to America to make, there's nothing wrong with men. We need men. I want to see more men in America. I want my daughters to marry strong men. I want their daughters to marry strong men.
Oh, absolutely. I have daughters too. I agree with you. I want them to have masculine men that actually, I know that can protect them, that are willing to have a hard work ethic and do what it takes to support a family. I agree with you 100%. And I think it's a lot of stuff in this country that really is meant to keep us sick. I mean, BPA products, there's studies that show that BPA products take away from testosterone and actually create estrogen in males. Soy products, they say create estrogen in males. There's a lot of different products, a lot of cereals. They talk about how bad they are for kids. I mean, think about it. So I'm really into eating healthy, and that's my lifestyle. And so people would ask me, like, what kind of diet I should do. And I think it's very simple. When you walk into a grocery store and you walk around the outside aisle, that's all the stuff that you should be eating, right? You got your produce, you got your eggs, your milk, all that stuff that is on the outside is all the stuff that we should be eating, right? Your meats. It's all the stuff in the aisles that you should not be eating, right? It's in a box, it's in a can, cereal or chips. If it comes in a box or it comes in a can, stuff that you shouldn't be eating. And you have to look at the ingredients. If you can't read what the ingredients are and you have no idea what it is, it's some chemical, you shouldn't eat it. It should be very simple. It should be stuff. And it should be stuff that you can read. We also overeat. I mean, you can go plenty of days without food. We don't need all the food that we need. And, you know, for people out there that if you're really into weightlifting and bodybuilding, if you're actually doing it natural, you don't need a lot of food. You'll still maintain your muscle. You could fast for days. You could go 30 days without water. So I think we definitely overeat. We eat the wrong stuff. I saw it when I was in Asia. When I was in Asia for almost a year, complete different than this country. Right? When you go to Great Adventure or SeaWorld in this country or Disney World, there's never any good food options. Right? It's always fast food. It's greasy stuff. It's horrible stuff. But when I was in Asia and you're there for, I was there for almost a year. When I went to safaris and stuff like that, there's real restaurants with natural food. I can tell you right now, you buy an apple in Asia. In 2 days, that apple's no longer. If you don't eat it, the apple went bad. But you buy an apple sometimes in the supermarket here in America, you put it down in a week, it's still shiny. I mean, that's a problem. It doesn't look right. So, yeah, I think a lot of stuff in this country that should be banned, which is banned in other countries, is still being sold here. We need natural products. We have to eat smart. We have to stop eating to fill a void and because we're bored. You know, I don't drink. I never drink soda. I drink water. So you got to take care of yourself. So it's really important, you know. And listen, we're 2 hours into this, 2 hours and 5 minutes. I want to, you know, tell our friends and listeners to podcasts. I really appreciate you supporting us. If you want this podcast to grow, we're going to grow together. This network, we're all getting our message out there and speaking the truth and what needs to be spoken about. So like and subscribe that button so we can work and we can build together. You know, our friends and listeners, you're very, very important to us that we get the stuff out there. And if you want to buy us coffee and a donut, we appreciate it too. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank guys. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:05 live. Yeah, but yeah, it's sad, bro. Everywhere I go, it's like that, right? The food's like that. It's terrible. You feel terrible after you eat it. It's horrible. Appreciate everybody for being on here. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:05. I think the next couple of days is going to be a little hectic. There's going to be a lot of news coming out, a lot of different things. But, you know, I had to deviate a little bit from New York City because I think the Trump rally it was a historic event. I think it needed to be talked about. It's just the sentiment of the entire country of what's going on. When New York City is filled with Trump supporters, you know that the world's changing, and you know there is a lot of hype around Donald Trump right now. I don't see any way he loses. Make sure you people are voting. You have no business being on here or complaining if you're not voting. I'll even take if you go vote for Kamala Harris. I don't care, but at least you have some skin in the game. Right? Go out and vote. Go out and vote. Don't vote for things and people you don't know. Don't do that. Be informed. Be educated. Like I said, vote no on Prop 1. If you're in New York, if you're in Florida, vote no Prop 3 and 4. There was an amendment. I'm sorry, Amendment 3 and 4. There was an amendment in Florida that I did vote for, and it was to secure the right to fish and hunt. Amongst the state in the state's constitution. I did vote for that because I do believe that is a right. You can't tell me that I can't fish or I can't hunt. And if you think in time that won't happen, look at New York City. There's not too many places you could fish or hunt. So, and when I looked at that, I was like, you know what? 100% I am voting to put that into the state's constitution. So make sure you guys get out there and vote. Make sure you check out our friend Tom Sullivan. You vote Tom Sullivan if you're in Assembly District 23. If you're not in Assembly District 23, please reach out to your family and friends in Queens. Make sure they vote Tom Sullivan. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.